First story, Echoes Beneath Fort Morrigan. They say the dead don't speak, but I swear to God, I heard them. I was stationed at Fort Morrigan, an old military base tucked deep in the forests of northern Maine. Cold place. The kind of cold that cuts past your skin and settles in your bones. The kind of cold that brings silence, and the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Fort Morrigan was mostly decommissioned. Only a skeleton crew remained, me and 5 others. We were assigned to oversee equipment storage and maintain patrol of the old underground bunkers. My name's Corporal Mason Turner. I'd been in for 5 years, seen some stuff, but nothing like Morrigan. The base had history. It dated back to World War II. Rumors swirled about top-secret experiments carried out in the lower levels, things involving sound deprivation, isolation chambers, psychological warfare. Some of the guys laughed it off. I didn't. Not after the 3rd night. We'd just returned from our usual midnight patrol. Sergeant Hale was on watch. The rest of us were unwinding in the mess. Hot coffee, stale poker, that kind of night. Then the alarm went off. Bunker C7. No one had been assigned to C7 in months. We grabbed our gear and made our way down. The lower levels hadn't seen light in decades. The air was stale, heavy. Our boots echoed like we were walking through a tomb. As soon as we stepped into Bunker C7, I felt it. A hum. Low. Almost too low to hear, like the air itself was vibrating. Private Jenkins muttered something about feeling dizzy. We chalked it up to the air quality and pressed on. Then the lights cut. Total darkness, like being buried alive. We switched to flashlights. That's when we noticed the handprints. Along the walls. Hundreds of them. Smudged, streaked, some small like a child's. Who the hell? Shh! Sergeant Hale raised a fist. Then we heard it. A voice. No. Voices. Whispering. Too many to count. None of them sounded human. We turned the corner. The corridor twisted into a room we didn't recognize on any of the schematics. Inside were chairs bolted to the floor, restraints, dried blood, a camera mounted on the ceiling, long dead. And in the corner, a mirror. Jenkins approached it. He leaned in. Then he screamed. I'll never forget that sound. It wasn't fear, it was horror, like he'd seen something that broke his mind. He dropped, foaming at the mouth, eyes rolled back. We dragged him out, but the whispers followed us, and I swear, in the flicker of my flashlight, I saw people walking behind us, naked, pale, eyes wide open, mouths whispering. We sealed C7, reported the incident. Jenkins never spoke again. He was discharged, committed to a facility in upstate New York. The official report said exposure to carbon monoxide. Bullshit. Weeks passed. The rest of the team started losing it. Hale was found sleepwalking down to C7 with a knife. Said he was following the voices. Private Sanchez shot himself in the rec room. Left a note, they're still down there. They never stopped screaming. Command pulled us out. They claimed structural instability. Fort Morrigan was shut down, fenced off, lost to time. But last week, I got a package. No return address, just a cassette tape. Labeled Session 4-3 Morrigan Sublevel. I played it. Voices. Crying. Then, a child's voice. They're still here, Corporal. They're waiting for you. Click. That night, the power in my apartment went out. My walls started humming. I don't sleep anymore, because sometimes I hear them calling me back. And one night, I know I'll answer. Second story. The Mud Beneath Fort Eldridge. I was stationed at Fort Eldridge, a forgotten military base tucked deep into the pine woods of northern Montana. It wasn't on any map. Even most higher-ups barely knew it existed. We called it the swamp, not just because it was always wet and miserable, but because everything about it felt off. Like the earth itself was rotting under our boots. They said we were there for communications research, radio frequency testing. But no one ever saw any equipment that looked remotely like comms gear. Just endless crates, sealed tight, and constant patrols around a perimeter that never changed. I arrived in mid-November. My name is Private First Class Anthony Rhodes. I had just turned 21. First deployment. Young, naive. Thinking I'd be posted near a city, maybe somewhere with a decent bar or even a base PX. Instead, I was dropped off by a military van onto a gravel road leading into fog so thick I couldn't see more than 20 feet ahead. The van didn't wait. It turned around and vanished into the white. There were only 27 of us stationed there. 27 soldiers and 2 officers, Captain Dorsey and Lieutenant Markson. No cooks, no medics, no support staff. We handled everything, and we didn't get mail. Not once. The barracks were prefab metal structures, cold and always damp. Mold in the corners. Our boots never dried. But the strangest part wasn't the living conditions, it was the sounds. Every night, around 0300, you'd hear something moving just outside the wire. Slow. Wet, slapping against the mud. We had floodlights on motion sensors. They'd flicker on sometimes, lighting up the tree line. Nothing would be there. But the mud would bubble. No one talked about it. We all heard it, but the rule was, you don't look out the window after midnight. Especially not if the lights came on. I broke that rule once, only once. It was my 6th night. The sensor light blazed on, and I felt it, like something was watching me. I moved the curtain just a crack. Something was standing in the mud. Not walking. Standing. A shape like a man, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, and it didn't sink into the muck. Its head tilted toward me. No eyes. Just a wet, rotted face like it had drowned years ago. It didn't move. It didn't blink. Just stared. I slammed the curtain shut and didn't sleep the rest of the night. Next morning, Private Donnelly was gone. His bunk was still made. His rifle was still in the rack. He had night watch. The logbook had one entry. He's under it. Captain Dorsey made us sweep the perimeter. No tracks, just thick mud, slick and untouched, like it had swallowed him whole. After that, patrols doubled. We weren't allowed outside alone, but it didn't matter. Every 3 nights, someone else disappeared. Always someone who had watch. Always after those lights came on. I started writing letters to my parents. I knew they'd never be mailed, but it kept me sane. I hid them under my mattress. When I checked after a week, they were gone. All of them. No one admitted to taking them. Then it was Sergeant Hale. He cracked, started screaming about the mouth in the ground, said he saw it open, said it whispered to him. They locked him in supply for the night. He was gone by morning. The lock was still latched from the outside. Inside, just his boots, upright, standing in a pool of black water that hadn't been there the day before. That's when Lieutenant Markson called a meeting, said we were to stop using the lights, said it was attracting something. Dorsey didn't agree. They argued, loud. Dorsey stormed out, straight into the woods. We heard the floodlight trigger. Just once. He never came back. Markson put us all on day patrols only. We huddled in the barracks at night. Some of the guys started drawing symbols on their bunks. Old runes, they said. Protection. I didn't believe it worked. Because one night, I woke up in the mud. Not outside, inside. The entire barracks floor was gone, replaced with swamp, and I was standing knee-deep in it. Everyone else still asleep on their bunks above, like the floor was still there. But for me, it was gone, and something under the surface was breathing. I screamed. The lights blew out. Everyone woke up in chaos. When they turned them back on, the floor was dry. No one else had seen it. Markson said I was having a psychotic episode, gave me pills. I didn't take them. That same night, I saw Donnelly again, in the trees, his face bloated, eyes sunken, his lips moved, but there was no sound, just a buzzing in my ears. Then I blacked out. When I woke up, I was outside, alone. Perimeter lights were dead. No rifle, no radio. Only the mud. And behind me, dozens of footprints, leading up from it. Not mine. I ran, through the trees, hours, until I saw a highway. Collapsed at the shoulder. Woke up in a VA hospital 3 days later. They said Fort Eldridge doesn't exist. They said I was found dehydrated and hallucinating, babbling about the mouth. But I know what I saw. And last night, I heard that slapping sound outside my apartment window, and the light flicked on. Third story, the buried orders of Fort Ashwood. I was stationed at Fort Ashwood, Kentucky, back in 2014. A forgotten, half-abandoned army post tucked deep in the Appalachian woods. The kind of place that doesn't show up on GPS and gets no cell signal past the rusted checkpoint. They said it was once a missile silo in the 60s, then a Cold War surveillance hub. By the time I got there, it was more ghost town than fort, maybe 50 soldiers total, mostly desk staff, mechanics, and weirdly, a full-time excavation unit. I was 24, Private First Class Ethan Monroe, transferred from Fort Bragg for reasons that weren't explained. They said I fit the profile. Whatever the hell that meant. My orders were vague: night patrol and logistical assistance for special recovery operations. When I asked what that was, my CO, Lieutenant Griggs, just said, "You'll see." First week, nothing happened. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no birds, just wind rustling the endless trees and the occasional groan of twisted metal from the old buildings. Then, on day 8, they sent me down into what they called Site Echo. It was a tunnel entrance, half collapsed, wrapped in hazard tape and reinforced with steel scaffolding. Sergeant Halverson handed me a flashlight and a sidearm. "Stick to the path. Don't touch anything unless instructed. And if you hear whispers, ignore them." I thought he was messing with me, but he wasn't smiling. Inside Site Echo, the air was thick, like breathing through wet cloth. The walls were etched with strange markings, some in Russian, some in languages I didn't recognize. About 200 feet in, we reached a sealed blast door with a keypad and retinal scanner. Halverson pressed his eye against it. The door opened with a hiss that sounded almost alive. Beyond it was a chamber, empty except for a rusted command chair and a floor covered in dirt. Not dust, dirt. Halverson said, "They buried something here." I asked what. He didn't answer. We stood there for 20 minutes. Then, without warning, the ground cracked open like an egg. A scream, no, dozens of screams echoed out. Human voices, panicked, overlapping, pleading in different languages. I tried to run, but Halverson held my shoulder firm. "Don't move," he whispered. "They're watching." "Who?" He didn't answer. Just stared at the fissure, breathing heavily. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something followed me back. I heard tapping on my locker. Then inside it, whispers in a woman's voice. "Ethan, dig it up." "Dig what up?" Next day, I reported it. Griggs looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. Told me to go see the chaplain. Except, Fort Ashwood had no chaplain, and I never saw Griggs again after that. Instead, Major Dorsey showed up. Clean uniform, no insignia. Said he was from Command Integration Division. Never heard of that. He had the same dead eyes Halverson had. He handed me new orders. Site Delta. Tonight. This time, I was alone. Site Delta was deeper underground. A freight elevator took me down 12 minutes straight. I lost radio contact 6 minutes in. When the doors opened, the air was freezing. Walls were made of rough stone, not concrete. And the floor, it wasn't flat. It pulsed, like it was breathing. There was one light hanging above a massive mound of dirt. A shovel stuck in the center. I don't know why, but I walked toward it. My legs moved without permission. As I touched the shovel, the mound shifted. A hand burst out, human but twisted. The skin was gray. The fingers were long, broken at unnatural angles. Then another hand, then a face. It was me, my own face, but dead, mouth sewn shut, eyes wide open. It reached for me. I screamed. Darkness. I woke up on the floor of my barracks, dirt under my nails, blood on my shirt. No one acknowledged me. Not the mess staff, not the other soldiers. It was like I didn't exist. That night, I went through my records. My name was gone. No file, no assignment, no transfer logs. My bunk had someone else's name on it. Private First Class Ethan Monroe had been declared Kia 2 weeks earlier. I tried to leave the base. The gate led to forest, then more forest. Then I saw myself standing among the trees, just watching. Every night since, I've woken up in a new place on the base. Sometimes Site Echo, sometimes Site Delta, sometimes even deeper. I keep hearing the whispers, "Dig it up," and I think I finally understand. There was never anything buried at Fort Ashwood. We were. Fourth story, Echoes Beneath Fort Ashbridge. It started with a radio transmission. Static, then a faint voice, barely audible. We were stationed at Fort Ashbridge, a decommissioned army base tucked into the Black Ridge Mountains of West Virginia. No one had used the place since the late 80s, but some genius in command decided it was the perfect site for our unit's cold weather training. So they sent us, 13 of us, into those rotting barracks in the dead of winter. My name is Corporal Mason Holloway. I've seen combat twice, served 8 years, and I'm not someone who scares easy. But what happened at Ashbridge? God help me, I still wake up hearing that voice. We arrived on a Tuesday. Snow was already piling at the gates. The place looked like a set from a horror flick. Rusted gates, crumbling watchtowers, windows blackened like they were painted over. Lieutenant Fraser gave us a quick rundown. We'd be there for 8 days, live drills, no comms in or out unless it was an emergency. Standard stuff. The first night, nothing much happened. Some of the guys complained about the cold or the creaky bunks. But me, I couldn't sleep. There was this sound, like someone was dragging something heavy across the floor beneath us. Except the floor beneath us was solid concrete. I brushed it off. Second night, Private Darby said he heard a voice through his earpiece, whispering his name. We laughed it off, said he was just jumpy. But later that night, I caught movement through the barracks window, thought maybe it was Sergeant Givens on patrol. But when I asked him, he said he hadn't left his bunk. By the 4th day, things got weirder. Corporal Lenz went missing during a perimeter check. We searched the grounds, even the old supply tunnels beneath the fort. Nothing. Only his flashlight was found, still on, lying in the snow, pointing at the tunnel entrance like he'd meant to go in and never did. Then the radio started acting up, static. Then words, not full sentences, just broken phrases. Underneath, help, can't breathe. The voice didn't sound like Lenz. It didn't sound human. That night, I woke up to see Private Halbrook standing at the foot of my bunk, eyes wide like he'd seen hell. He didn't say anything, just handed me his notebook. He always carried one, scribbled in it instead of talking. The page said, "There are faces in the walls." He shot himself 2 hours later behind the mess hall. Lieutenant Fraser tried to keep things together, ordered us to stay inside and rotate shifts. No one was allowed alone. But paranoia had taken root. We started hearing footsteps in the hallways when everyone was accounted for. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the radio kept playing that damn voice. Now clearer, almost pleading, "Don't leave me here." Day 6, Private Keller vanished. We found drag marks in the snow, no signs of a struggle, just gone. And then Corporal Jansen lost it, said he saw Keller's reflection in a broken window, waving at him, mouthing the words, "Come down," again and again. We tried to leave, packed up what we could, radioed for extraction. No response. Lieutenant Fraser finally broke protocol and ordered a full evacuation on foot. We made it as far as the eastern ridge before the snowstorm hit. Visibility dropped to nothing. I could hear someone behind me, boots crunching in the snow, breathing, the click of a rifle being slung. I turned, and there was Keller, pale, eyes black, his mouth open too wide, and from it came that same voice from the radio. "Stay with me!" I fired. Others did too, but he vanished like smoke. We lost 2 more in the storm. The rest of us stumbled back to the fort, battered, hot, frostbitten, silent. No one said a word. That night, the walls bled. I swear it. Dark streaks ran down the barracks like veins opening up. By the 8th day, only 5 of us were left. Lieutenant Fraser walked into the tunnel system with a flare and a sidearm, said he was going to find the source. He never came back. The extraction finally arrived the morning after. Choppers touched down, medics ran out asking questions. We didn't answer. What could we say? That a ghost fort swallowed half our unit? They sealed Fort Ashbridge after that. Classified everything. But sometimes when I drive through West Virginia and get too close to those mountains, my radio crackles to life. Don't leave me here. 5th story, The Echoes Under Fort Briarfield. It started with a whisper. I was stationed at Fort Briarfield, an aging training base buried deep in the Kentucky woods, about 20 miles from any real town. The place had a strange quiet to it, like the trees themselves were listening. Most of the guys brushed it off, saying the old buildings just had character. But from the first night, I felt something watching. My name's Marcus Delaney, 23, from Sacramento. Joined the Army to get away from a life going nowhere. I didn't sign up for ghost stories, but what I lived through at Briarfield, it changed everything I thought I knew about this world. Briarfield used to be a World War II prisoner camp. That's what the old-timers told us. There were tunnels underneath the fort, sealed up decades ago. Some said they used them for interrogations. Others claimed darker things. Most of us laughed it off, until we stopped laughing. It began when we lost Carter. Private Ben Carter was a loudmouth, always making jokes, never took anything seriously. One night during drills, he vanished. No one saw where he went. We searched the whole field, the barracks, even the tree line. Nothing. The MPs said he probably went AWOL, But Carter left all his gear behind, his wallet, even his lucky coin he always kept around his neck. That same night, I heard it, a tapping, soft, like knuckles against metal. It came from beneath my bunk. I knelt down, heart pounding. Nothing was there, just the floor, concrete. But when I touched it, it felt warm. The next day, the commanding officer restricted us from going near the old supply building. No explanation, just red tape and locked doors. Naturally, that made it all the more tempting. So me and Juno, my closest buddy, decided to sneak in after lights out. We used a bolt cutter we stole from the maintenance shed. The lock snapped easy. Inside, it was dust and silence, old crates, rotting uniforms, and in the far corner, a trapdoor. We looked at each other. Juno whispered, "You thinking what I'm thinking?" I nodded. We pried it open. The air that escaped from below was thick, wet. It smelled like rust, oil, and something else. Decay. We climbed down with flashlights. The tunnel beneath was lined with brick and rusted pipes. It stretched far under the base. We walked for what felt like an hour, winding deeper underground, our boots echoing with each step. The walls began to narrow. That's when we saw it. Scratches, hundreds of them, fingernail marks along the walls, some deep, some fresh. "What the hell is this place?" Juno muttered. Then we found Carter's dog tags. They were half buried in the dirt. The chain snapped. That's when we heard the scream. High-pitched, human. Then cut off. We ran, fast as we could. But the path behind us had changed. I swear to God it wasn't the same. Turns we hadn't taken before. Doors that weren't there. And then we hit the chamber. It was circular. Stone walls slick with moisture. In the center stood a chair, metal, bolted to the floor. And in it, Carter. Or what was left of him. His eyes were gone, mouth stitched shut with wire, chest carved with symbols I didn't recognize. He was breathing. I stepped forward, against every instinct. His head turned, and he whispered, voice like gravel, "It wants us." Suddenly, the tunnel roared. A wind from nowhere. My flashlight burst. Everything went dark. I don't remember getting out. I woke up outside the trapdoor, alone. It was morning. No sign of Juno, no sign of Carter, just bruises on my arms and dirt under my nails. I tried to tell the officers. They transferred me out within a week. Said I had a breakdown. 3 weeks later, Fort Briarfield burned down. Official cause, faulty wiring. But I know better. I still dream of those tunnels, of Juno screaming my name, and of something just behind me, breathing, waiting, hungry.